Hi everyone, this is Stan. I'm a YouTuber from Poland who used to live in Taiwan for 9 years and now making videos on Asian politics. Today let's discuss Ant Group's failed IPO. Founder of Ant Group, Jack Ma, delivered a speech at the Bond Finance Summit in Shanghai on October 24th, and the following part of his speech gained my attention. Talking about the Basel Accords and the problems of China, he said that China's problem is not a problem of systemic financial risk, because China's financial sector doesn't basically have a system. Its risk is actually a lack of financial system.
因为中国金融基本上没有系统。
He also criticized the current financial regulatory system and even called Basel a seniors club that's not suitable to regulate the Chinese financial system.
巴塞尔协议比较像一个老年人俱乐部。
What's interesting, he gave the Chinese word for to regulate 监管 a different meaning. In fact, the character 监 in English it is supervision, the first character in the word for regulation in Chinese, and 管, English for that is management, the second character in the word for regulation. 监管. These two are absolutely different things. Supervision means watching you as you develop and paying attention to your development. Management means intervening when there is a problem or foreseeable crisis. While talking about those two meanings, Jack Ma mentioned that China is focused too much on management, but the ability to supervise is obviously insufficient.
管的能力越来越强。 监的能力明显不足。
And you could hear the audience laughing after he said that. But probably for the CCP's officials and Xi Jinping itself, it was too much to handle. The largest IPO in history was suspended all of a sudden in early November. Jack Ma got called in to talk. It is also said that Ant Group's IPO got suspended by Xi himself. Don't you ever mess with a bear. And targeted a valuation of about $225 billion US, based on an IPO of about $30 million. Even Taiwan's two leading life insurance companies, Cathay Life Insurance and Fubon Life Insurance. They were eager to try and invest in Ant. They originally planned to invest 3 billion Taiwan dollars in Ant's financial services. This IPO got an uproar among the large players in the global financial world, who got almost played for fools by the CCP. In the past, the CCP authorities preferred not to interfere in the booming development of financial technologies and internet finance. Even many senior party members have devoted themselves to the finance technology market. In recent years, multiple P2P platform failures caused widespread bankruptcies due to the over-reliance of the companies on financial leverage, which has hollowed out China in disguised form and slowed down China's industrial development. As finance investment fraud and investment failures continue to increase, causing higher dissatisfaction in the people and raise of the claims coming from the people, the cost and difficulty of maintaining stability is also growing, and the high-level CCP officials who have always put the interests of the ruling class first now have to tighten control over these technology and financial industries, which actually are large enough to shake the regime. After Deng Xiaoping's reforms, China's economic growth stuck in a bottleneck, and the One Belt One Road initiative, the original intent of which was to dump the world with cheap products and solve the problem of overproduction, is currently facing resistance from the participating countries. The wave of large-scale closures of Chinese enterprises and factories has resulted in many layoffs. There is a long-term unemployment problem, and 80% of Chinese people still find it very hard to make ends meet. In order to avoid the domino effect, the so-called internal circulation advocated by Xi is actually going back to planned economy. Jack Ma is a businessman, and his reaction to the traditional financial regulatory mechanisms and national financial systemic problems is normal, as he is trying to sell his own product. But the key problem here is that he is crossing the line in this extremely sensitive moment for the Chinese Communist regime. For the Chinese Communist Party, this is undoubtedly a harsh statement. In fact, since the establishment of Ant Group's micro-lending services, financial experts have been analyzing the risks, requiring the relevant authorities to implement the financial supervision mechanisms as soon as possible, as we face the rapid growth and huge changes on the fintech market. Although Jack Ma continues to use innovation and technology to package Ant Group's products. In fact, many of the services that those fintech companies provide are essentially traditional banking services. And the fintech companies like Ant, while providing those services, are also taking on the financial risks. Those activities might cause a spillover effect on the financial system and the economy. The use of the regulatory mechanisms with those companies is inevitable. Ant used the ABS bonds and their 3A+ credit rating to sell bonds at the lower interest rates than on the market, and provided 15% interest loans to nearly 500 million people in China. At the same time, they also encouraged their clients to invest in the same banks they've been borrowing money from, selling this option as an investment package. This is tantamount to selling you a whole basket of risks. And there also is another thing with companies like Ant. If the people get direct access to their services without any regulation in place, it might cause overlending, thus making it even more difficult to avoid the burst of the Chinese economic bubble. As of November this year, the Chinese corporate bond defaults have exceeded the record set last year. The state-owned enterprises like Yongchen Group, chip manufacturer Tsinghua Uni Group, and Huacheng Automotive Group Holdings, Brilliance Auto, accounted for 40% of total defaults. It was a huge wave of bond defaults by the Chinese state-owned enterprises, which caused panic on the market. Currently, 57 companies have cancelled 44.2 billion yuan bond issuance plans. From the suspension of Ant's IPO, it can be seen to a certain extent that CCP has taken a sharp turn from its lenient attitude towards finance technology companies. And this is unprecedented since the opening of China. I'm talking about the reforms by Deng Xiaoping. Starting in the second half of 2019, Hong Kong's one country, two systems became officially dead. The CCP concealing coronavirus epidemic in 2020, more blatant forced provocations and military expansion, creating conflicts on the border, and trying to increase the pressure in the South China Sea and threatening the West. These moves done by the Chinese government are completely unhelpful to the economy. And it seems that the CCP is only making everything worse for China. The suspension of Ant Group's IPO occurred right after the 5th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of the CCP. It is not difficult to associate it with the power struggle inside the Chinese government. The new era of attacking the landowners and redistributing their land, which was a major slogan during Mao's times, is unfolding before our eyes. The difference between Xi and Mao is that Xi is still trying to maintain the ability of the Chinese Communist Party to absorb the money, but at the same time create the new blood and soothe the people's dissatisfaction with the regime. They are taking the resources from the people and redistributing them to the military and the new colonial policies such as One Belt One Road. This is undoubtedly a well-planned and ingenious arrangement in attempt to refill treasury, which is currently being emptied by the military expansion. It is not really appropriate that Jack Ma linked the Basel Accords with insufficient innovation of the European banks.
我们今天看到的巴塞尔协议本身也让欧洲的整体创新受到了很大的限制。
The most forward-looking innovations in the Chinese financial sector are made in the area of payment only. Payment itself is not within the scope of Basel Accord. The European and American regulations on payments are made in another set of regulatory rules, which are not directly related to Basel Accords. It seems like Jack Ma is criticizing only in a single purpose of making a point. And he also emphasized that the essence of finance is credit management, which requires technology and big data to establish a reliable credit system. The credit-based system is not built on traditional IT, not based on personal relationship-driven society, but must be built on big data in order to truly make credit equal wealth. That's what Jack Ma said.
而是必须建立在大数据的基础上，才能真正让信用等于财富。
We can also say that he just tore off the mask of China's prosperity and wealth. It's not even being said by the critics of China, but rather by a person who is a member of the party and a part of this system. The outside world generally understands that China's bank lending model is exactly the same as their ruling model, and what they do is just similar to a pyramid scheme. While talking about healthy financial system, Jack Ma just made a proposition for everyone to rely on technological innovation to fill the gaps that might appear in the future. It is precisely because China's risk is related to the lack of financial system. But the main risk that can be seen within the Chinese financial system is bonded closely to the Chinese government. This is a fact that Jack Ma didn't dare to say out publicly. He won't dare to disobey the CCP. The suspension of Ant's IPO has proven again the risk of investing in totalitarian countries, whether it is related to the freedom of speech, any kind of personal freedoms, or investment in financial risks. The founder or the CEO says one thing wrong, just one thing, and you'll hear investors crying all around the world. That's the key concern. The smallest thing can affect everything. Look at the business owners who have been punished for their words. For example, on November 11th this year, Hebei's entrepreneur Sun Dawu was arrested, and his Dawu agricultural company was also investigated. The rumor has it that Sun Dawu didn't want to collude with the corrupt officials for many years, offended many local government offices. Sun Dawu tended to defend the interests of the farmers and fought for those interests for many years with state-owned farms occupying the land. He also tried the system of separation of powers in his enterprise. He was loved by farmers but became a pebble in the CCP's shoes. Ms. He Qinglian, an expert on Chinese economic issues, stated at the International Forum in Vancouver, Canada, "In the past 20 years, the capital of Chinese rich has plundered public and private wealth to an almost unscrupulous degree, resulting in a very wide gap between the rich and the poor. and excessive concentration of wealth in the hands of a small group of people. She said China's low-income class, that is, the poor, accounts for almost 60% of the population. A society with too many poor people, a society without any upward mobility, is an unsustainable society. There are no social guarantees in China, and without a solid educational foundation, there will be no society that is truly free from poverty. Innovation is necessary, but it is based on the average productivity of each citizen in the country. If China wants a truly sound financial environment, it really does need to get rid of poverty. But it's not the fake lifting out of poverty or forced lifting out of poverty that CCP is promoting. You should start with the reform of the household registration system, to opening the political system and the governmental reform. CCP should take its dirty hands off the lives of the people, open the markets for enterprises, and stop brainwashing the citizens. Socialism is always becoming poor together, but the party is getting richer and richer. The CCP system itself is a Frankenstein's monster, made of the worst ideas you can find both on the left and on the right. It uses leftist large government, and its economic policies are beneficial only to the state enterprises. But once you want to get any benefits for your service, if you worked for the country for all of your life, you'll get none, as if you lived in the rightist country. You also won't have any freedom, any property protection, or any openness. Big government that takes everything from you and leaves you with nothing in gratitude. No matter if you support the left or the right, the CCP is an insult to both of those. Recently, many experts have been saying that Xi Jinping is following Mao Zedong in his policies and is doing everything to re-implement Mao's way of governing the country. However, I would like to add one point here. Mao Zedong and the Communist Party of China are themselves nurtured by the CPSU, which is the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. What we have in China right now is an enhanced version of Stalin's inhumane policies. Therefore, while comparing Xi Jinping's economic policies with Mao Zedong's attacking the landowners and redistributing their lands, one can also go back to the new economic policy implemented by Lenin after the Russian Civil War. That is, in its essence, the partial opening of the market economy, which later actually became a model of the so-called socialism with Chinese characteristics. This semi-open economic policy also enabled the rapid recovery of Soviet Russia's economy in the early 20s and of the Soviet Union after 1922. However, after Stalin took over, the new economic policy got quickly terminated. The new capitalists who appeared in the early 1920s were also quickly eliminated. Deprived from their wealth, they didn't have any rights to settle in the city, simply robbed and sent off to collective farms or gulags. Doesn't it look similar to what's going on in China right now? I think that Xi himself doesn't want to simply take Mao's road. He is also taking the Stalin's route. And what does he want most? He wants the whole world to be afraid of China. The Soviet Union in Stalin's time was a terrible place. No one liked the Soviet Union, whether at home or abroad. Most people's feelings about the Soviet Union could be described with one word: horrified. What Xi wants is for the Chinese to be afraid of him, while also making foreigners being afraid of the CCP and not daring to offend its leadership. This is the great rejuvenation that he has in his mind, and he will turn China into a monster at any cost. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe and share. This is Stan, and I see you in the next one.